Hi, folks. I've just finished the interview with Laurie Cameron, the author of The Mindful Day, at the interview you're just about to watch. And there were a couple of little glitches during the recording where the bandwidth went a little bit flaky and we got a couple of little freezes. So I just wanted to alert you to that before you went into it so you wouldn't think it was your system or your machine. And to let you know that they're very brief. The little glitches are very, very brief. Laurie's content, Laurie's ideas, Laurie's response to the questions are so relevant and useful for the program that I'd hate to think of anything like those little hiccups putting you off. So let's get on with the show. Let's introduce Laurie Cameron, the author of The Mindful Day. Take care. Hi there, folks. Welcome back again. And for me, this is really, really an exciting interview to be doing. I'm here with my very good friend, Laurie Cameron, and now a #1 selling author in 2 categories on Amazon with her new book, A Mindful Day. And you'll see as we work through why I say this is the book I wanted to write. And I really feel that she kind of went and ate my lunch. But everybody who is in the mindfulness business is going to feel that, because she really has written the perfect mindfulness book, particularly for the audience of folks that are on this call. So let me stop the share on the screen there and introduce Laurie to you. So Laurie, you're very, very welcome onto the session here today.
Oh, it's great to be here with you.
And no, I just wanted to finish
Wonderful
off.
to see you again.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of crosstalk on the line, but let's not worry about it. You know, but what Laurie has done, and her book is called Mindful Day, is she's taken a look at one of those days, or taken a look at your day and said, hey, how could I actually harness the things that I do day in, day out as mindfulness practices? So how could I tune into the things that I have to do anyway to help me become more effective dealing with busy schedules, difficult emotions, managing relationships, and all the challenges that we face. So that's, and the book goes step by step through each of the phases of your day, talking about everyday organic practices that you can implement as part of your everyday, as part of your everyday. Now, Laurie, you know, you're a long-term meditation, a long-term mindfulness practitioner, and I guess you'd be one of the cool kids in the mindfulness arena right now. In fact, we're all cool kids if we're involved with mindfulness today. But when you started off your practice 20 years ago, it probably would have been really uncool. What attracted you to the whole area? Oh.
All right, let me try this. Can you hear me?
There you go. I can hear you now.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here.
Oh my God.
I was working at Accenture, Deiric, and it was a very high pressure, high stress SAP engagement with a global client. And my client counterpart must have noticed all the things I was juggling and the overwhelm and the big challenges we were experiencing, and said, have you heard of mindfulness? And I said, no, I haven't. And she turned out to be a close Dharma teacher and friend with Thich Nhat Hanh. So this engineer from Vietnam, Cho Yoder, introduced me to mindfulness and taught me the basic foundation practice of how to train my mind. And that's where it started.
Oh, wow. What a gift. What a fantastic gift. And a gift, I'm sure, that you've passed on to other people many times.
Well, I have since, in the last 20 years. What was powerful then was I'd never learned this capacity, in my life, whether it was university or, church. In all the domains of learning, I'd never learned that we can actually deliberately engage in practices that shift our state and that develop new traits over time. So that was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So even if I wasn't cool, I thought, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole world has caught up with you at last, and as I say, it has become cool again, or it has become cool to be a mindfulness practitioner. Now, one of the things that keeps coming up on our program from folks is I love this when we're in the sessions, the practices. I really get great benefit from them. And when I take the time to sit down and do them, I feel the better of it. But I'm so busy. So that's a sort of a domain that your book really addresses itself to.
Yeah.
You took a day where it's one of those crazy days where you'd probably say, I just don't have time for mindfulness practice today. What are some of the ways that you could integrate practices that don't require you to sit down on a cushion into your day?
That's such a great question, Deiric. And what I would suggest to your listeners is they pick an activity that they already do, that's already on the docket for the day. So, and pick one in the morning when they're still at home, like having their morning coffee, and then pick something at work and something in the evening. So let's start with coffee or tea, whatever they might be drinking in the morning. As they are brewing the tea or grinding the beans for the coffee, to bring full attention to the actual process of preparing the tea.
Yeah.
So we're training attention, focused attention, by deliberately directing our attention, not thinking about something that happened this morning or what a meeting we're going to have that day, but actually bringing attention to the coffee. And then when they sip the coffee or tea, actually smelling the smell, tasting the taste, feeling it go down the body, and just savoring. So mindfulness is about training attention, working with emotions, but also amplifying the positive, savoring the good. Yeah. So they can kind of bring in attention and savoring the good all in that one first sip in the morning. So that's one way to start, is before you even leave the house.
Super. And that's nothing new. That's nothing you have to add to your day. It's something you're going to do anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, great.
And then, if they're at work, if people, whether they work at home or on location somewhere or in a busy office, all of us tend to get distracted. Sure. And we tend to have competing priorities in this gig economy, which we call it here in the States. You might be calling it that, where we're working on multiple projects and pulled all over the place. And there they can do a practice that I just love, called 3 breaths, where they notice that sensation of being overwhelmed or having too many commitments, and they stop. And they take 3 breaths. The first, bringing attention to the breath. The second, relaxing the body. And the third, asking what's important now. Okay. And that creates a little bit of space wherever they are and helps them to reconnect to what's most essential, to what they need to focus on.
Wow, and I love that practice, because you won't be aware, but in the session we did this morning, in fact, we spoke about, we've sent people away and suggested that they get the potential projects timer that has that little random bell that rings during the day, and that they take a sort of purposeful pause. And that 3 breath practice, particularly with what's important now, is absolutely perfect for that. So folks, there's a second practice that you could put in there, interspersed throughout your day. That's super, and I love that. I love the way you're sequencing it into the breath, and then into the body, and then back to what's important now. Great, super. And yeah, I had a feeling that I cut you off and there was something else there.
Oh, no, that's perfect. And there are a lot of different tools and apps. I love the insight timer, meditation timer, that you can put right on your phone, and organize, intermittent bells. But I think the powerful skill, one, you can do this practice if a bell goes off at a random time. But what becomes really powerful is when you tune that your heart's beating a little faster, or your breath is going a little more shallow, or your hands are sweaty. When you get those signals in the body, and that becomes your mindfulness bell. And that's when you say, you know what, it's time for 3 breaths.
Wow.
So, or a colleague makes a comment that kind of triggers you. So you start to use cues in your own body and with your workmates and so on, to help you realize, to give you a little signal that, okay, I need a mindful pause right now. This is a time to take a breath.
Yeah.
So that also works at home. A third thing I would offer is, when we come home in the evening, A lot of times we bring the stress and pressure. Maybe there was a difficult conversation or a difficult moment, and we bring that into the sanctuary of our apartment or condo or home. And we can do a practice right at the door where we stop and take a breath and shift our state. And even if we live with someone, there's a practice I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh. I've been training with him for 20 years around the world. And he teaches us a hugging meditation where we greet a person we live with. And there's also 3 breaths in that. And we just acknowledge that we're happy to be alive. And then the second breath while we're hugging is we're happy this other person is alive.
Yeah.
And then the third breath is we're grateful that we're here together in this present moment. And I'm telling you, that hugging meditation will really shift your state and create connection. And that's one of the things we all long for.
Oh, absolutely. And what I really love about that is that, and I know I'm guilty, just like half the world out there who's listened to this, is when you're hugging, you're often thinking beyond the hug. So you're going through the hug and you want to give the hug, but you're thinking beyond the hug instead of inhabiting it. And I love that idea that you come into that hug, 100% be present.
Oh, thank you. I love that you said that. I think we're all guilty of that. And, it's almost like we have a little internal voice saying, okay, should I let go now? When is the hug over? Who's letting go first? So it actually gives your mind something to focus on. And that's gratitude and presence. And first yourself, I'm about to get on a flight to Dallas to do a keynote at Deloitte. And, they're going to tell me to put the oxygen mask on myself first.
Yeah.
And meditation that, okay, I'm here, and then I can extend that out to the other person. So I encourage everyone to practice that today as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, I really love that. If all you did coming home at the end of the evening as you walked over the threshold was hugged your loved ones and actually really were present and really inhabited that, God, that is a shift that really would cause a shift. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And this is a very wise Vietnamese master who's in his 90s who teaches this. But one of the guys who endorsed my book, Dan Siegel, a wonderful neuropsychologist, teaches us that we are at our best state, our healthiest, when our mind and body are integrated. When we can create integration, that's when we're ready to achieve our potential as humans. And that practice from this wise senior Vietnamese monk actually creates integration because I'm bringing the attention of my mind into the same place as my body.
Wow.
So it's really an embodied practice teaching what scientists are teaching now all over the world.
Yeah, and also it's all good business too. I mean, and I don't just mean literally the hugging, but you mentioned your old alma mater, Accenture, and Accenture recently published, I think it's the presence economy or the attention economy, and they said that the single biggest predictor of business and individual success is the ability to marshal attention. So everything you're talking about there is doing exactly the same job in developing that ability to manage your attention as you're doing when you do the formal practices. So it's something for nothing.
Well, the other thing that I love about integrating practices in the day, which is why National Geographic wanted this particular book, is that it actually creates a more enjoyable life. So I really encourage people to practice in the morning, in the evening, in a formal, dedicated way. But by integrating these practices in the day, you're hitting the reset button throughout the day. Yeah. And you're actually creating a little space, down-regulating your nervous system, amplifying connection and joy. And the net of that, Deiric, is just a greater, more enjoyable day. And that adds up to a more enjoyable life. And that's part of, one of the missions that I'm on is I know, and I've, experienced a lot of loss. I know that life is very short. Sure. And I really want to bring people practices that are very practical, that they can weave into the life that they have right now.
Yeah. And I stole a statistic from one of your presentations that I saw on one occasion where it was taken from Harvard Business Review, where they spoke about people, the studies have shown that people are spending as much as 47% of their time with their mind somewhere else. So to your point, I mean, they're basically doubling the amount of life that they experience just by coming into that hub, just by coming into that moment with the coffee, instead of continually being somewhere out in the catastrophic future. It's a wonderful way of taking it off the cushion and taking it into so-called real life.
That's right. That's right. And that number 47% is a real number. Harvard captured that in 2010. A lot of people ask me now, do you think that number is even higher?
Yeah.
Maybe we're at 54%, with all the distraction we have with the new design of the apps in our phone.
Sure.
And perhaps it is. But the question for each of us is, what is my number on average? And what would be the impact of my life if I could get the number even 10% or 20% lower? So we're not going for present. I'm not trying to be present 100% of the day. What if I could change it? What would my ROI be if I could shift it 20%?
Wow.
So for me, that's an incredible question and invitation to train in practices.
And everybody is trying continually to improve their value, improve their productivity, improve their output. And there's a way to do it with a hug, for God's sakes, with literally stopping to smell the coffee. It's a fabulous view of things. But so what you're teaching and what you're bringing to the world in the book, in this very practical form, it's improving attention. It's improving people's resilience and ability to do it or to deal with difficult emotions. It's improving their ability to be with the people they love and to really, really be and to inhabit their lives. So with all of the attention that sort of work is getting right now, it's hard not to imagine that in 5 to 10 years' time, we're living in a world where workplaces should be dramatically different if this trend continues. What's your view of where it's going, what the workplace looks like 5 to 10 years hence, if mindfulness continues the march that it's on right now?
Well, I think that we're continuing to cultivate more and more boundaryless, agile organizations and cultures.
Yeah.
I've been in organization development, leadership development for 30 years, and we've been using those words for 20 years.
Yeah.
Saying, it's the boundaryless organization, but I am seeing it and living it more and more. You and I are partners in the world. You and I partner with the Search Inside Yourself organization. I partner with, Deloitte and other companies. So this idea of partnership is becoming more and more of a reality. And I mentioned the gig economy. Yeah. So it's less about my employer and this is my job, but it's more about what are the projects I'm working on right now that have a beginning and an end. And I'm more of a free agent. So I'm seeing that really amplified and going and accelerated. And mindfulness actually helps us tremendously with engagement and performance in those conditions. Because when I work with senior executives, we're talking about the complexity, which is really ratcheted up, and the uncertainty. So my capacity as an individual to develop my muscles to navigate complexity and uncertainty is the cutting edge for leadership.
Yeah.
So I can cultivate a way of feeling of recognizing that there is no ground under me. Change is happening super fast,
sure.
But I can be okay with that. So that ability to not resist change and to also connect with compassion to yourself, with a self-compassion practice, and to your clients and partners and customers is the work of leaders today to navigate that culture in 5 years.
Yeah, and then thank you for a great response and a great view of where we're going. And in fact, it gives me one sort of final add-on to that question. As we work through the program with the people who are watching this interview, much of the work is being done with them as individuals, but most of them have the tag of manager or leader in their title. So one expects them to sort of lead their workplaces towards these sort of positive changes. What would you say is maybe the one thing that anybody can do to start to seed these sort of practices into an organization where they don't exist or they hardly exist right now? How would you start if you were bringing it in for the first time?
That's such a great question, Deiric. It's important that we work in sort of a three-legged stool model. We work with ourselves as individuals. The second leg is working in teams. And then the third leg is the macro level at the organization. And the way to do that at all three levels is to cultivate rituals and structures and processes that enable individuals, teams, and companies to come into the present and connect with an open, curious mind.
Right.
So if I'm a leader in an organization, I can do some practices that are in my book, for example.
Yeah.
If I'm walking into the business day and I'm kicking off a team meeting, I can kick that off with a mindful minute. So in the companies that I'm working in, leaders are starting a 10 o'clock meeting and saying, let's just take a minute to arrive. I'm going to set my timer on the phone and I'm going to, lead us in some breathing. Or if the company's not there yet, everyone just, close up your laptops or don't open them yet and just take a minute to let go of the meeting that you just completed and kind of bring your mind and body into the present.
Yeah.
So this mindful minute is a practice, if you will, but it can become a new ritual, which then starts to get codified into a structure. And once we have new structures, we start to shape the culture.
Sure.
So there are many such structures that we're introducing into companies now that have a desire to create conditions for people to be more mindful and present. So it's an outside-in approach.
And I love the fact that you're recognizing that the whole blasted world runs on rituals, and the only way to bring these practices into organizations at a cultural level is to bring them in as rituals and to ritualize them. So and that's a really soft way in. The mindful minute with no breathing is just a wonderfully soft way into introducing the benefits of that. Thank you for just wonderful. Listen, one final question I want to ask you, and it's a slightly unfair one. It's like asking which is your favorite child, which of your children is your favorite child. But as you think about the book, there must be one or two or three of the ideas or practices that you have in there that you just think, yeah, that was my best work. So which one or two or three of the practices that you present in the book would you say to the folks here, this is my best stuff?
Well, I do love that question, Deiric. And there are 50 chapters in the book that go through the day, and so practices are woven throughout. In the beginning, I put the 5 core practices. If someone was going to learn 5, they're in the beginning. If I had to pick, however, a favorite practice, it would not be one of those 5. It would be a blend of those 5.
Okay.
And I would say that my favorite practice is the self-compassion practice. And the self-compassion practice, which is based on cutting-edge research that's even being developed as we speak right now in Berkeley, California, is a combination of stopping and pausing with the breath. So it's a core mindfulness practice of I'm stopping, I'm recognizing this is a difficult moment, this is a complex conversation, or I dropped the ball, or I failed, or something is really tough. So mindfulness is step 1. Step 2 is common humanity. So continually cultivating a mindset of we're all in this together, I'm human. So practicing that connection to something outside myself. And the third step is compassion. And for me, practicing compassion, speaking to myself with kindness, wishing that my suffering is relieved, is incredible training to do for myself. But it also, these 3 steps allow me to do that and tune in to what's needed around me. So the self-compassion practice helps me stop, pause, direct self-compassion, and train myself to be more compassionate to others. So that's my favorite.
Super, super. And just remind me, I've had a little brain blank there. The name of the lady whose research you're talking about on self-compassion. I should know
That's
it.
Dr. Kristen Neff. And she works closely with Christopher Gammer, and they do fabulous work. And she created that model of the 3 steps to self-compassion.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody who's listening to this and thinking, oh, self-compassion, that's a bit self-indulgent, and I'm not sure about that. Please go and look at Kristen Neff's research, read it and read into it, and just understand the pragmatic scientific stuff that is behind these practices, so that you can understand that you cannot be compassionate to others and be the way you want to be. You cannot be emotionally intelligent in this world without treating yourself well first. So well said. Thank you so much, Laurie. Laurie, thank you for the gift of your time. And Laurie made allusion to the fact that she's going for a flight shortly. And I'm sure she has 1,000,001 things that she needs to get done as she's getting the book out there. As we're talking right now, the details of Laurie's book are scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I can tell you, you can get it on Kindle, which is where I read everything. And it's a perfect one for, at least the way I'm reading it, is 1 chapter per night at the end of the day. They're lovely bite-sized chapters, but they're full of meat. But really wonderful read and really practical book, and perfect for the folks on this program. So Laurie, thank you.
Thank you, Deiric.
Really.
And I just want to encourage your listeners to join me on my mindfulness community at Purpose Blue, because I'm sharing excerpts from the book, and I'm sharing tips and research on applying mindfulness at work and in this emerging complex world of leaders. So that's purposeblue.com. And thank you so much, Deiric. I might see you again in a couple months, I hear.
From your lips to God's ear, Laurie. I'll make sure that we put up underneath the video as well, the purposeblue.com, so that people can get to share some of that wonderful material. So once again, thank you very much, and bon voyage.